So now we're going to look at how to add in additional looks and additional cues, and you can kind of customize the software how you like in order to set it up for yourself. So the first thing that we definitely want to do, save a new show. Maybe save it with your name, and you can work on it throughout the year. You can come back, because we definitely don't want to override the default show. So save a new show. Then we got to figure out what lights we're going to use and what we want to do with them. Now the workflow for this is all done in the programmer, which is this command line down here. So we need to select our fixture. We need to tell it what parameters we want going on, whether it's color, intensity, whatever. We're going to record that into a cue. And then once we clear the programmer out, since we're looking at that, we can activate the cue and we can make sure that it worked. So first thing we want to do is select our lights. And there's two ways to do that. You can go to the fixtures here and just click on them. So these are our LEDs down here. You can click on the ones you want. You can click on multiple ones. Hit the clear button to clear it out. But the easier way to do that, since we have these IDs assigned, we did them last time, 5 through 8 are the LEDs. We can just hit 5 through 8, enter. That'll select them. You can also do 5 plus 7 if you want to pick like 2 of the alternating ones. Whatever you want to do. Let's say we do that. So we got 5 plus 7 selected. You can see it down here. Select fixtures 5 and 7. So now we're only controlling those fixtures. Now all the parameters, they live over here. You hit this arrow up. We get all the parameters here. There's another arrow up here that'll give us some more control, like color, things like that. So let's say we're going to go real simple. We'll set a color. We'll set it to red. So we want to dial these guys out. Now you can click on them here, or you can use these 4 rotary encoders to control them. That's a lot faster. So we'll set everything to 0, but the red channel. You can see there's 2 dots in the color section, so if you hit it again, you're going to go over in the secondary area. So you got ultraviolet light over here and the amber. Cool, so we got red at 100% in the 2 lights that we want. Now that we got the look that we like, we can hit record. It's going to pop up with this window. Most of this you don't have to worry about. You can leave these activated, leave these activated. The source means it's going to record whatever we have active, which are these red channels. So any channel that's in red, it's going to record that feature. This is what to do if there's a conflict, but we want to avoid the conflict, so it'll pop up with a prompt if there is some kind of conflict, and you say cancel out my record. The time is how long it takes to transition into the look. So 1 second is pretty good for color, so it'll take it about a second to transition from one color to the other. And then the filter is really important. So this is good because we can select the exact parameters that we actually want to record into the cue. Otherwise, it's going to record every single thing for the light. So for this, since we're only doing color, I like to just select color. That way it only saves those aspects of the parameter. So that way the intensity we can control separately in a separate cue. That makes it easier for actually doing the shows. But if you wanted to, and you wanted to set like the red at 50% and save that whole thing as a look, you could do that. Record the intensity and the color. It'll save all that information, so when you hit it, it'll go to 50% red. So just do the color for now. Once we have all our parameters selected, we're going to click on where we want to put it. You can put it into any of these playback areas. You can put it into any of the banks down here, whatever you want to do. So let's throw it right there. Once we click on there, it's going to pop up with this window. So we need to name the cue. We're going to call it Awesome Red. We can select the type. Pretty much the only ones we're going to use are a cue list or an override. We covered those in an earlier video of what those are. Cue lists are good for colors. That way that they can be controlled and overridden by other parameters if we so choose. So we'll click on cue list. And it pops in right there. So now we still have the things recorded in the programmer. And the programmer is going to be the thing that the software looks at initially. So we're still seeing red. So even if we hit like blue or purple or whatever, it's still going to look red because we have it set in the programmer. Now the way to get rid of that is to hit the clear. Once we'll clear the parameters, then you hit it again. it'll get rid of everything. So now we have a blank slate, and we can check our look. We hit the awesome red. It's going to bring that sucker up. We got an awesome red on stage. So some of the other things you can do, I'll select our movers. So you can do that, or you could just hit 1, or we could do 1 through 4. That'll give us all of them. Now the movers have a lot more parameters because they have movement, they have pan and tilt, they have speed, there's little effects you can do. So for that, let's say we want to build a movement. So we're going to go to the pan tilt area. This is the angle of the pan, angle of the tilt. You have some macro selections, which are just some presets built into the light. You dial that sucker in with the encoder, wherever you want to put it. Another way to do it is to click on this little crosshair looking thing. And you can actually point them exactly where you want them to go. That can be pretty helpful too, and then finally adjust them with these guys. So once we have them pointed at a spot we want, let's say we want to add some movement. We're going to go on the pan tilt section to effects, because if you have something else selected in pick effects, it's going to be something different. So we want pan tilt, effects, and now you can see we have all these shapes that it can do. We can cycle through those like so. You have the speed that the movers can go. The swing pan and the swing tilt are how far it's going to pan or tilt. So the farther you set it, the more it will rotate. And these are things you can just mess with, see what they look like, see how they go. For this show, for the default show, I will usually erase the speed channel once I get the look set. So you clear the channel. And that way the speed, remember I had it set to one of the faders, so it will be controlled by the fader. So you're not programming in the speed into the look. You can control it separately. But if you wanted to, you could program the speed into the look, so as soon as you hit that button, they'll start to go at the exact speed that you picked, at the exact swing and pan that you picked, in the shape that you picked. There's a few different modes. Multiplier will like double and triple the effects that you have programmed in. Rotation is how far it rotates. This is all stuff you can mess with. It'll be easier for you to just play with it and see what it does than for me to go through and explain every single thing. The timing is a good one to know. So since we have 4 lights selected, we can do a wave delay or a step delay. And what that'll do is it'll wait for X amount of lights to go before it restarts the new movement. So it'll be really obvious once you start messing with those. You'll see what it does. Fanning is another similar thing, but it will just offset the time for which the light starts since we have 4 different ones. So that can be a way to quickly program in a look that looks different for every light, so they're not all synchronized all at once, unless that's the look you're going for. The rate are mostly like macro rates. I wouldn't worry about that. I honestly don't mess with those too much, so I'm not entirely sure what they do. So don't worry about that too much. Or figure it out and explain it to me, one or the other. Cool, so we have our pan and tilt set. We got them in the position we want. We got the effects chosen. Let's do a circle. Let's do the maximum tilt with a tiny bit of rotation. So those suckers are going. They're looking cool. The speed is cleared. One thing I will say that I did mention before, if you dial up something with the faders while you're programming things in, the things on the faders will not be recorded because they're not going through the programmer. What that means is if I dial up the mover speed with the fader, so we set it to 50%, and we can see him going up on stage, it's not going to record this channel because you see the parameter still is not selected, it's blank. If we wanted to record the speed, we could hit load channel. There we go. And now it's red, that means it's going to record that parameter when we record everything. I'm going to clear it because I want to control all my movement speed with this guy. So now it's not going to record that parameter at all, so it will always look for this for the mover speed with whatever cue we're using. Cool, we got our look. Pan tilt is selected, you see it's red there, which means there's parameters selected in there. That one's also red, means we got parameters selected in there. And now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hit record. For this one, I'm going to select just the pan tilt only. So we're only recording that. Click on where we want it. Let's put it over here. We're going to call it Awesome Move! Exclamation point. You can do it as a cue list or an override. I'm going to leave it as a cue list so that we can maybe stack them up and it works nicely. Click it. And there we go. Now it is recorded over here. So in order to preview that look, again, remember you to just clear out. So we're not looking at anything in the programmer. Click on our awesome move. Those suckers are going to move. It's going to be awesome. And that's it for the most part. Each light is going to have different parameters of control because they're different lights. Obviously, like the LEDs are only going to have color and some strobe. The movers are going to have more you can do. They're going to have movement. So just go through, mess with those, see what kind of looks you can get, record them, and see what you got. So the other thing that will be tricky that we'll go into, remember in the other video how these guys kind of stack up, which means that they have different parameters in each one. So I have the wave activated, and it's doing some things with the lights, maybe panning. Then when I hit siren, there's a tilt parameter. So instead of overwriting this one and having this one go, it's just going to add those additional parameters onto this one. What that means for you when you're programming is, let's say we'll pick light number 5, which is our LED. We'll bring this up. So let's say we're trying to set a color for those LED lights. We're going to dial up the red to 100. Let's bring these to 0. Now you see that these parameters are all red, which means it's going to record those. However, the white parameter is blank, which means it's not. So if we were to record this color, which we did already as awesome red, and then we were to try to make another cue and adding in some white, maybe do white at 100. Now when we go from awesome red to awesome white, that white is going to be added in addition to this red channel, if these are clear. So sometimes that can trip you up, especially like in double panes. So if we were to add UV in there too, and we don't have any of these selected, these parameters aren't going to override the previous parameters in the last cue. So that's why sometimes you'll have to release a cue for the next one to fully activate. So that's going to add to it because they're both active, because there's different parameters in each one. Hopefully that makes sense. It tripped me up for a while when I started working with lighting. So just go through, you just have to mess with it, sometimes get frustrated, make some mistakes, learn it on your own, and we're always around to help you out if you need it. That is pretty much it for how to program in your own looks. We've gone over patching, we've gone over programming looks. You are set up for success to have an awesome show. Have an awesome show.